What if Doctor Who hadn't been axed in 1989? That is something many have tried to guess at, and now it's my turn. I'll be going through this concept at the rate of one season per episode. These videos are based on information released by John Nathan Turner, Andrew Cartmel, Ben Aaronovitch, and a lot, and I mean a lot, of guesswork. The 39th season of Doctor Who could only be described as an attempted new start for the show. The show would introduce a dramatically different companion, and with her a dramatically different style of stories. Our new companion is Commander Sandra Armstrong, who is half Belarusian and half human, and she's from the planet Bellon. She has accumulated a hatred of humans as her father, a human, left her mother when she was very little, and Sandra has taken that and applied it to all of humanity. When we meet her, she is commanding a rust bucket of a space station in the year 3345, where she's been working to lead a project into hyperspatial travel, but she's failed. Another change that happened in season 39 was the fact that Stephen Moffat has stepped down as script editor for the show and has been replaced with Russell T Davies. Stephen Moffat decided to leave due to creative differences with Chris Sandeman, as he believes Sandeman wasn't letting him do his job to his full potential. Russell T Davies would have brought a much more human spin to the show, even though none of the characters were actually human, but he still brought a very human feel to it. Finally, to signify this change of tone in the show, the colour of the title sequence was very slightly altered to make it more of a brown look, which incidentally gave the show a more age feel, which is exactly what they were looking for.
For the interest of development, the human race has been selected to lead the project into hyperspatial travel. I call it favoritism. I cannot believe that the human race was selected for the project when the Belarusians were the perfect candidates. I should be out there on the new frontiers exploring hyperspatial travel, not the humans. It seems I will remain under this rust bucket of a space station on the edge of the galaxy. Terminator log entry, Commander Sandra Armstrong, 12th of November, 3445.
A strange blue box appears out of nowhere in the space station Exotract 42's hospital. All the instruments read that it don't exist. They don't acknowledge its presence. Soon enough, an expert known as the Doctor starts to help out. Meanwhile, a secret ploy to get the Belarusians out of power is taking place, as well as corruption at the highest levels of the Belarusians' worst enemies, the Poplin. The truth must be uncovered before hyperspatial ships reach the launch pad. This story would have been a dramatic change to the series, with a very cold opening that doesn't see the Doctor show up to a couple of minutes after the opening titles. This story tells us something very different. It's all set up as if it's its own show that just happens to feature the Doctor. It shows it from the other character's point of view. We actually never see the Doctor on his own. We always see him with another character, and from their perspective. This story has three main plots: the A plot, the B plot, and the C plot. The A plot is about hyperspatial travel and the favoritism to the humans. The B plot is about a character called Father Ballard and how we won't grant the Balochians any power. Father Ballard runs the church, who are a major power in the galaxy by this point. Finally, the C plot is about the enemies of the Balochians, the Poplin, and their corruption, as well to their ties to the A plot and the B plot. As you can see, all the three plot strands tie in together. At the end, it's revealed that a character called Lieutenant Commander Jazzle, who has been acting as the Doctor's companion all throughout the story, is in fact a Poplin spy, who has been surgically altered. He sets the station, Extra Trap 42, to self-destruct, and to save Sandra Armstrong's life, the Doctor takes her into the TARDIS against her will. The Doctor and Sandra land in Germany in 1922. It's a country riddled with poverty, and most recently, a serious case of hyperinflation. The two get pulled into major historical events after the Doctor is heard blurting out information about the country that at the time only the most important could know. Now they must riddle, not to only save their own skins, but also leave without causing any alterations to the delicate web of time. This story would have been set in a post-World War I but pre-Nazi Germany in 1922, during the hyperinflation crisis. It would have featured the Doctor and Sandra getting wrapped up in historical events and a few prison cells. It would have been revealed at the end that hyperinflation was being caused by a race of plant life who came to Earth and started growing money. However, everyone who actually spent that money ended up dying a day after. So the money ended up being used for other things, such as children's play sets, places to store things, that sort of thing. This story had been quite heavy on the horror aspect for the death scenes, and the story did have quite a dramatic death toll of 16 individual on-screen deaths. The Doctor and Sandra land in an unusual village on an alien planet. They are immediately arrested by the village's sheriff, as he suspects them of killing 34 of their people who have spontaneously combusted over the past 5 days. After earning his trust, the Doctor and Sandra must find out what has been going on before it's too late. This would have been a sad little story about a man, Sadak, who has been exiled from his home world 60 years previously onto a deserted moon. Because he was so lonely, he built 125 androids to inhabit his town, all with artificial intelligence. However, over the past 5 days, they started breaking down due to age and overloading, which caused them to spontaneously combust. By the time the Doctor and Sandra had landed, Sadak had gotten so used to the androids he's completely forgotten what his life was before the moon, and that he even invented his people. It is only when the Doctor detects that there are strange emissions appearing all over the village that he and Sandra activate an EMP, and everyone but Sadak shuts down. This story ends with the Doctor and Sandra taking Sadok back to his home world, where he's welcomed back as a war hero and has been fully pardoned by the new government, who had overthrown the occupation by an invading species, the Poplin, who exiled Sadok in the first place. The Doctor and Sandra land on a small moon approximately 400 million light years away from Earth. However, what they find when they leave the TARDIS is that they are not on a deserted rocky surface like they expected, but instead they find a perfect recreation of early 20th century Earth, Manhattan, which seems to be completely populated by normal people who do not seem out of place at all. But how could this place possibly exist? This would have been the fun story of the series. It sees the Doctor and Sandra landing in a massive holographic theme park created by an alien businessman. It was of 21st century Manhattan. The Doctors are appalled by the fact that real people have been copied into strange holographic beings and been forced to do whatever the businessman wants. He sees this as a violation of holographic rights and interstellar law, in the same way he feels about miniscopes. On a small mining planet, two people arrive and introduce themselves as the Doctor and Sandra Armstrong. However, these people are not the Doctor and Sandra Armstrong, and are in fact intergalactic con artists called Kor and Naradath. If they are lucky, they will be able to make a hefty profit out of the Doctor and Sandra's apparent goodwill. However, sometimes luck is out of question. This would have been the all-out comedy episode of the series. It would have seen two con artists badly impersonating the Doctor and Sandra to make a profit. Unfortunately for them, the Doctor and Sandra catch them doing this while they decided to visit the mining planet. Of course, the Doctor isn't very happy about this at all, and he decides to stop Kor and Naradath in their tracks. However, everyone believes the Doctor and Sandra are in fact the personators, as they recognise the two con artists as the Doctor and Sandra. This story tells the Doctor and Sandra trying to prove they are who they say they are, and the two con artists are not. On the morning of the 25th of August 2002, Jane Armstrong was shot. The assassin was never found, and now Jane's descendant, Sandra Armstrong, is going to find out exactly who killed her ancestor. This story would have been relatively similar to the Doctor Who story in our timeline called Father's Day. It would have been about an ancestor of Sandra's on her father's side, who was very famous in the family, as she was famous due to her charity work, and she was also assassinated. This story sees Sandra trying to find out who killed Jane Armstrong before it even happened. In the end, when Sandra finds the killer, she completely loses it and kills him with her bare hands. The Doctor, of course, isn't very happy about this and leaves Sandra in 2002. Alone, Sandra must put things right, and she assassinates Jaina herself. Once this happened, the Doctor lands the TARDIS around her to avoid her being taken by the police. Sandra can't quite believe what she has done, and she runs off into the labyrinth for the TARDIS as the story ends. universe, the Doctor is a madman exploring the cosmos. In another universe, the Doctor is an old relic seeking out assistance in the high hills of Gallifrey. In another universe, the Doctor is a power-mad overlord who controls half the cosmos. In another, the Doctor is a freedom fighter during the Dalek occupation of Gallifrey's second moon. In another, the Doctor is president of the galaxy. All of these universes have something in common. Someone very powerful was trying to kill the Doctor, and to stop him, the Doctors must unite by any means necessary. This story once again addresses the parallel universe theory and shows us many different examples of what the Doctor could have become. For the first 3 parts of the story, we follow each universe in its own story, where someone called the General is trying to kill the Doctor in different ways. The final part of the story shows the Doctors all uniting to stop the General. The Doctor completes work on the play scripts that decides his life and many of his past associates in an unintentionally offensive way. Sandra realises that the Doctor may be going a little too far and decides to alter the play script based on information she can find using the Doctor's old space-time visualizer. This episode is a very cheap episode this season. It's arguably the cheapest episode of Doctor Who ever made. It is, in fact, a clip show episode. The worst kind, in fact. We get set up of the Doctor writing an awful play about his life and Sandra watching it on the space-time visualizer, but instead of some cool new stories with the past Doctors or something like that, we get badly cut down versions of previous stories. These stories are the first part of An Unearthly Child, Tomb of the Cybermen, The Green Death, Talons of Wen-Chiang, Planet of Fire, Time Lash, Survival, Nightshade, and Blink. This episode would become to be known as the worst Doctor Who story in history and loathed by fans. A positive, however, that it did introduce new viewers to the past Doctors and their companions ready for the 40th anniversary year. However, many fans did not see it that way, and as a result to the backlash of this story, Chris Sandeman realised that he might have overstayed his welcome, and decided to announce on the 9th of December 2002, just a month after the story concluded airing, that he would step down as producer of Doctor Who after the conclusion of Season 40. So there we have it, Season 39 of Doctor Who. Next up would be Leftover Series 3, followed by Season 40 of Doctor Who. Hope you enjoy this, and until the next time, goodbye.